Hey, how's it going, guys? Welcome to another edition of Low Budget Time. And today we're going to look at a couple more of in the series, the WD5513. So I've got two more watches that are in that series of watches. So just so you know, the Watchdives 5513 is loosely based on Rolex's 5513 case that I believe debuted sometime around, could have been around 62 or something like that. I don't know. My Rolex knowledge, as I've always said, is not the best. But that was that was probably, some people say that was like the best Rolex case ever made. I don't know. I don't own a Rolex, but I live vicariously through others. So, be that as it may, one of the things I appreciate, I always liked Tudor's version of the Submariner better. I've said that a million times on this channel, but what had happened was I was kind of going through some of the watches on AliExpress, and I kind of ran into these. I was looking at the Thorn version of the Tudor Snowflake, and somehow these kind of popped up in the feed. So I was like, well, you know what? Check them out. So I requested that those watches be sent, and I wound up getting 4 of them. But these 2 we haven't looked at. The first 2, one was a mill sub. I did a video of that. It was the mill sub homage, and then the other one was one of the Tudor Snowflakes with a date. So far, none of the Tudor Snowflake models I have a date window or a Cyclops, right? So I do have a little information on that, so we can kind of go over it. Just so you know, when we're talking about the vintage Tudor Snowflake history, we're talking about reference numbers 7016, 7021, 9401, and 9411. And they were in the late 60s and 70s. And then the Snowflake, the hour and minute hands, you have square indices for better visibility. That was done on request from the French Marine Nationale. Sometime, I want to say 70s. Because I think the 60s versions had the, I want to say Mercedes hands back then. Because, Tudor and Rolex being so close together, they're owned by the same entity. The Tudor was borrowing a lot of stuff out of Rolex's parts box, such as hands, cases, bracelets, things like that. The movements were basically ETA movements, and they did that for a long time until Tudor finally developed and got their own movement. But that happens way down the road. So it started with the 7016 as a no date, and then the 7021 with a date, right? And then in 1969, everything evolved to the 9401 with a no date. That was the 9401 reference number was a no date. 9411 with a date. So Tudor also introduced a new shield and a logo. That was basically marking a shift away from Rolex. And today, you have the Black Bay, the Pelagos. The Black Bay and the Pelagos lines took over Tudor's dive watch. That's Tudor's dive watch. But in that, on the Pelagos, essentially they've kept the square indices and the snowflake hands, and then the Black Bay they kept the snowflake hands, but they have round indices. So one being a stainless steel model, meaning the Black Bay, and then of course the Pelagos is I want to say that's a type. Is that a type 2 titanium or grade 2 titanium? I think it's like grade 2 titanium. Very lightweight. And some people were kind of turned off with that watch because of the weight. Weight isn't always an indication of quality. It's just, it's just a material that they're making these things out of. But anyway, let's talk a little bit about these watches and their specifications respectively. You have, the Watchdive specs are as follows. 47 millimeters is the lug tip to lug tip. And then the case thickness is 12.3 millimeters. with the if you have the domed sapphire glass, it's 12.3 millimeters, and if you have a top hat, it's 12.85 millimeters. And then so the case dimension is 38 millimeters, and then the bezel itself is 40 millimeters. So I'm going to say, you know, I had some discussions with it, well, not discussions, but I had a little bit of an argument with a gentleman. It wasn't really an argument. It was kind of like I don't know what you're talking about. It was, you know, they list the case dimensions as 38, and sometimes you see 38.8 millimeters. It depends on where you're looking. I would think that he says that, well, you know, it goes without saying it's always without the crown guard. You know, the dimension's always without the crown guard. Say this with confidence. Okay. I'm going to tell you with confidence it's probably 38 millimeters. Okay, so if I had to guess, I'm not exactly sure where the 38.8 millimeters comes from. The web being what it is, sometimes you type something in and you get, you know, AI. I just do this sometimes. I do like a quick search through AI, and then I'll also try to take a deep dive and see if I could find anything else to corroborate what I'm seeing on AI, because sometimes AI isn't always correct. But anyway, there's a few things that I've discovered about these watches that it is. I want to say that I had some information about the bezel inserts on here, but anyway, let's talk about the watch from the top all the way down to the bottom, and I'll tell you what I was thinking about when it comes to the bezel insert in a moment. But you know, those are the specifications of the watch, and some of these models they have a this one here. This is like what the watch would look like new. You don't have any of the patina on the handset, and you don't have any of the patina, like the scratches on the aluminum bezel insert. Here's what I want to say about the bezel inserts, okay, before I forget. Supposedly, the bezel insert, I think, is 38.8 millimeters. And the inside, that's the outside dimension. On the inside dimension, it's 33.5. Anyway, I may be wrong about that, so don't quote me on that, okay? The reason why I say that is because some people like ceramic over the use of aluminum. And if you're interested in getting a ceramic bezel insert for this watch, you could find one using the 39.5? You know what? I had this damn shit written down, and it's not in my notes. I do apologize for that. But what I want to say is that if you wanted to switch it out, you could switch out the insert. Go to, I think it's DIY Watch Mods, and they actually have. And if you're interested, I'm going to put some information down in the description. I'm actually going to write the specification numbers down there, along with where you can find the bezel insert for. That's the best way I'm going to do that. You know what? Disregard what I said about the insert. I'm going to try to find the information for you guys, and I'm going to put it as I read that information. I'm going to put it in the description box. So if you're interested about where to get a ceramic bezel insert, and you do have one of these watches and you want to change it out, you can do it. And it's really easy to do. Basically, these inserts, they apply with a glue. So to get it off, you're going to have to, soak the watch in 70% IPA, only the bezel in the IPA for a few hours. And then what you would do is you would take because the bezel goes counterclockwise, what I do is I just take my two thumbs and I press down going clockwise. And eventually what happens is the seal breaks, the glue seal. And then you just take if you want to really be careful not to damage the insert, you would just take an X-Acto knife. The end of an X-Acto knife is a very, very thin blade. And you would just, what I try to do is go on the inside and I pry up a little bit. If you go on the outside, you may scratch up the bezel itself. So be careful not to chip the crystal. I've seen people do that. If it's not coming up for you, stop. Don't keep prying up on it. Go back to working it. If you can't break the seal, if the bezel doesn't move clockwise, the seal's not broken yet. So you want to soak it again, and then try what I said, pressing down, going clockwise. And then once you get the insert out, you would take, I would take like a Q-tip or something like that. Clean the bezel gutter really well with some IPA. Once you're done and you got it clean, satisfactory, rinse the watch really well. You don't want any residual alcohol. Alcohol can dry out seals and stuff like that. So you want to make sure that you didn't get any alcohol that permeated up underneath the bezel. All right. So speaking of the bezel, it's a good click. Not really any backplay to speak of. The only thing that I found a little off-putting about the bezel was the thickness. Look how thin that is. But it's sloped. And if you look at original photographs of Rolex 5513s or Tudors in the references that I spoke of, you'll find that bezel, I don't know if it's that thin, but it's pretty thin. Not a real thick bezel. So yeah, that is basically how you would get a bezel insert off, and then the new one has a glue strip. But you know what I like to do? I don't like to use that glue strip that came with the watch, or that came with the insert. What I like to do is I like to use like Elmer's rubber cement. And what I'll do is I'll take a little bit of that on a Q-tip again and kind of dab it on the gutter. And then when you put the new insert down, you got some time to work it. See, if you use the adhesive strip that's included with the insert, chances are you only have one shot to get that right. And if you get it misaligned, then it's gonna suck. You're gonna hate it. You're not gonna like it. You're gonna keep staring at it saying, geez, did I get it straight? Anyway, that's what I found out about that. So let's talk more about this watch. So, I had made some comments about this watch being, the AR coating on the underside of the crystal. It's actually very good. I got a lot of watches, and I got to tell you, man, this one really, really speaks. You could see it. You could see it fighting the reflection. I got a lamp staring straight down on this watch right now, and you can see that it's not. There's not a lot of reflection going on there. It's really doing a good job of fighting the reflection. So yeah, we talked about the bezel, and we talked about the bezel insert and all that, right? So the dial on it, it's very clean. There's no date, which I love, but this movement does not use. It is not a no date kind of movement. It's called it basically has a ghost date position, which means that when you're pulling the crown out, you're going to bypass, like the crown basically telescopes out, of course, and that there's you're going to kind of slip by the area where the date would be. I'm not going to speak too much on that because I'm not a watchmaker and I don't know how exactly that works. I think that's the keyless works, I think they call it. But I'm not exactly 100% on how and why they call this a ghost date. It's just, it would seem to me that when they made this watch, like the NH38 from Seiko is actually a movement that's designed to not have a date. There's no date position on it. There's nothing for a date wheel. I don't really care about the ghost date aspect of this watch. I could care less. I think it's okay. I have set the time. I've done that before. It's not a big deal. Works really well for me. The dial on it is just a clean, I want to say it's almost like that Tudor blue. They did a really good job on it. The indices are, they look to be applied. I don't think these are just splotches of paint. It looks to me like they're actually, like they're just applied indices, not just paint. So the original model of this watch, the Tudor version, would actually have paint on the dial. So yeah, that's what you get. Snowflake hands, snowflake indices, pretty nice. Screw down crown, 200 meters of water resistance on this guy. Really nice watch, by the way. Again, this is a 20 millimeter lug opening, so this is going to be a very wearable watch for a lot of people. I would say if you have a big wrist, like if you're a big guy and you got maybe like closing in on an 8-inch wrist, you probably would think that this watch is too small. I did say that in other videos regarding the 5513. I still stand by that. I myself, I'm used to wearing, you know, this is one of my Steinhardts. I'm used to wearing a larger cased watch. I'm a small guy. I only have a 7-inch wrist, but I'll give you an example. Let me just take this watch off for a minute. I did size this one. I believe I sized. Did I size this one? No, I think I sized it. I think I did size this one. So this on the wrist, on my wrist, wears perfectly. Nice. I even don't mind the fact that it's a 20-16 taper on the bracelet. It doesn't look that bad to me. And I'll tell you why I think that. See that clasp? That's a nice clasp. So it's a nice clasp in that this particular clasp happens to be their on the fly, meaning that if you can see inside, you see that where my index finger is right there? If you press down on that, let me just get one of these watches out of the way. If you press down on it, now this is very new, but what's going to happen is, you hear that? So that's basically the way you adjust it in and out. It's pretty cool. Actually, I would say that it's probably 3 or 4, I want to say, it might be like 4 levels of adjustment. But yeah, you can see how good that looks. But I'm a big fan of this clasp. I was, you know what, when I did the other videos, I was kind of criticizing the clasp a little bit. But let me just backpedal, because once you get used to it and how it works, because it was brand new, I think it just had to be worked in. I think I even said that in the video. This is the clasp that they used to use. It's basically just it's a 5-hole, similar to, you know, you need a spring bar tool to adjust. It's not on the fly. It's still a nice clasp. It's just not, it's not that on the fly clasp, okay? Really nice. The other thing too, it uses an integrated link, which means that this link right here, that's a male link right there. It's integrated into the swing arm of the clasp. Clasp is fully milled, and even right here on the other side of the clasp, see in there? That's integrated, man. That's totally integrated. So I think the idea or the thinking from Watchdives is, you know what? If we're gonna make this thing integrated, we're gonna make it really good. We're gonna make the clasp really, really good. And I'm a fan of the clasp now. I gotta tell you. I think once you get used to the way it works, you're gonna be like, man, I wish I had these for the rest of my my dive watches. You know, really good stuff though. But I've got good things to say about that. Now, the other thing that I have noticed about this bracelet is that when you speak of things that are integrated, you see that first link right there? Well, you know how like on a lot of dive watches, the first link, it's got, it links up, there's a pin, a screw that goes into the male end link. On the end link, there's a male tab. Well, they didn't give you that. So the first 3 links are basically fixed. Like what I'm saying is that they're integrated links on both sides. The very first 3 links, there's no now they also use screw pins, okay? They use screws to do the adjustment on these. It's just that that's the first time I've seen on any of the watches I have the absence of a screw on that male tab on the end link, just so you know. Anyway, so let's talk about the next watch. So the next watch is, let's say that the first watch gets old. What's it going to look like when it's got a lot of sun beaten down on it? It's got patina, it's got scratches, and the lume is old, and it's kind of, it's looking pretty yellow. Well, anyway, that's what it will look like. So let me see where we were. This is the original one, right? So this was the one we first looked at. So now let me just. So you got like a little bit of a before and after going on here, right? So you got. Let me just make sure that's spun right there. It's good. Yeah, this will be like if you just pulled it out of the box brand new, and then this one here would be like a lot of years later. So that's what I think is really cool about this lineup, is that they have, they got a little bit of everything going on there. They got a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of age, a little bit of new. But anyway, the one I just showed you, the blue one, the one that's the deeper blue color, the one that's not meant to not look like it's old. It's nice to have something like that, because then you get like a perspective of, you got vintage look, and then you got one that's like new out of the box. So what I didn't show you was they did polish the side of the case on this watch. And then this one here, it's more of a machined finish. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, I think even though it's machined, it's finished really, really nice. And all of these watches, by the way, have drill lugs, which I am such a big fan of. Yeah, so again, the bezel action on this, it's good. No back play or anything like that. Same thickness, same dimensions. I want to say the crystal is domed on this as well. That's domed. This one uses is a top hat. That one's a top hat. And that one is domed. So the first one I showed you guys with the date on it is basically flat or flatter on top. It might be, I want to say it's just a top hat sapphire. And then the mill sub looking guy is literally, that's also a top hat. And then this one is just domed. And then this one is a top hat. So yeah, when you buy these, or when you go to look for them, there's going to be, you may find a seller that's selling this lineup. There's going to be, I want to say there's 5 different models of this watch. There's the Rolex version, and then the 4 I just showed you. So, and then you're going to have everything that's made now in version 2 is going to have the on the fly clasp. The difference between version 1 of this watch and version 2, as I read it, version 1 was a little thicker. So the case dimensions were just a little bit thicker. I don't really know exactly what those case dimensions were, but the watches are said to be now, they're said to be thinner, and they're said to be more refined. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I guess they made some improvements, and it looks like they did. These watches are very, very hot. But if you're interested, get the AliExpress app. You have to download it, and then from there you would go and you would just select, you put WD5513 in there, and then resellers, or anybody that's selling that watch over there, it'll come up. You can also go to watchdives.com. You can find it there. Watch is bordering around about $180, $200. Sometimes you can get them for about $150 US. You really got to be looking for the sale. You got to be looking for somebody that's pushing them out. There was an 11/11 sale that we just went through in November. Of course, none of these watches, I didn't buy these watches. They're pretty much on loan to me, so I'll be sending them out very soon. But I might keep one that I can purchase at a discounted price. But the gentleman I work with over there, starting to run out of watches. I don't know what he's doing, but I gotta connect back with him and see if there's anything else on the fire. to see if that I can get in here to share with you guys. Most of what I do on this channel is dive watches. That's what I do. It's what I like. I like tool watches. I'm not much of a fan of like dress watches and other sports watches. I like the dive watch aesthetic because it's like, I think I said this before, it's like a go anywhere, do anything watch. And I think these watches are made very well. I would say that I don't know if I missed anything, guys. I sure hope I didn't. We're going to look at the Lume on these, and then we're going to wrap things up with a final thought. And hang with me as I shut the lights off. All right. Okay. So the first one we're going to look at is the aged, with the aged and the seasoned handset. That one, and then this is the newer looking one. Okay. Now, as you can see, they're growing pretty good, glowing pretty good. If I had to say, this one looks like it has more of a C3 look to me, and this one looks like BGW9. Now, they're both listed as of having BGW9 as the luminescent paint, but if it's more green, that's a C3, and if it's more blue, that's a BGW9. Now, I guess it comes in grades, classes, whatever you want to talk about, but I've always found the stuff that I've gotten off from Steel Dive or Watchdives or any other of the companies over there like San Martin, it's always been pretty good. So that is the Lume. The last thing we're going to talk about, and then we'll let things go, is the movement. So the movements are basically the PT5000. What I'll say about the PT5000 is a couple things. You'll start to notice on AliExpress, you'll start to see a lot of watches that used to have the NH35 in it. Now they're making those watches with the PT5000. Sometimes you can still get them with the NH35. Sometimes some brands will sell that as an alternate, and it'll sell the NH35 version cheaper. The PT5000 is a higher beat movement. It beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. It is an ETA clone. I said this before in other videos. It's got the hacking, the hand winding, and all that. I want to say it's 25 joules, I think. It basically is just like a head-to-head to the ETA. It really, I guess, you got this smooth sweep and everything that you get with an ETA, a smoother sweep than you get on an NH35. I'm not throwing shade on an NH35 by no means, but I think that they're trying to, you'll notice some of the prices that have gone up a little bit. The PT5000 is going to cost a little bit more. It's not terribly more. It's not a lot more, but it is more. I just think that it's their way of, offering an inexpensive high beat movement. I think that that's what they're doing. And then, the company that makes the PT5000 is Hangzhou. It's, they're roughly supposed to be getting around plus 5 seconds a day in accuracy. The only knock that I've ever heard on the PT5000 is something to do with I want to say it's something in the keyless works, or it's something to do with the winding mechanism for hand winding. I don't know if they've gotten that sorted. I think by now. That might have been earlier versions, but if you read some trouble spots on the PT5000, something may come up. Now, the parts, I am told, are interchangeable between an ETA 28242 and the PT5000 again. The form factor is exactly the same. In other words, if you took this watch apart, you took the movement out, you could put an ETA movement in, and then if you had a watch that had an ETA, vice versa, you could put a PT5000 in there. Not that you want to do that, but you could do that. But that's pretty much everything I got on these watches, guys. You won't be seeing these again. This is the last 2 watches in the series. So, you know, I just thought I would talk about all 4 while I had them here. And, you know, they're pretty nice watches. I recommend it. If you want a really cool looking retro watch you can put in the box, these watches fit the bill. If you're not subscribing to Low Budget Time, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button if you like today's video. I got over 100 subscribers, and I would just like to personally thank you guys for subscribing to Low Budget Time. Much appreciated, man. But I'll see you guys in the next episode. As always, take care, stay safe, and be well.